Hi, this is Natalie Lander, voice of Kinsey, Tara Branford, Stargirl, and many others. You are listening to a W2Mnet podcast. You can visit W2Mnet.com for other podcasts about entertainment, video games, sports, and wrestling.
Did you miss us?
We certainly missed you, Harry.
I was going to say, more specifically, did you miss me? Good evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this, as is always the case on this show, and welcome as the W2M Network presents The Kickoff, regular season debut edition. I am your host. My name is Harry Broadhurst. Once again, back in the saddle after unfortunately missing the previews and predictions show. I will give you guys my previews and my predictions real quick at the end of the show. That'll be kind of how we go off. And some of you might want to adjust your predictions and your previews given some of the stuff that has happened recently. We'll talk more about that later in So That Happened. Regardless, joining me, as per usual, we got the whole cast of characters tonight. The executive producer turned co-host, Erik Watkins.
Oh, finally, some normality again. Although I will say, between Nick Foles and this hurricane, there's a lot of big dick energy around this place for Sunday.
You know, you guys didn't get hit nearly as hard as you thought you were going to by this storm.
Hey, this is the time that made me realize I may be a bit too Floridian for the state of Florida. Trying to go around and get more booze and everything closed early. Hey.
Leave it to Erik to be our resident drunk. Oh, wait, nope. Jason Teasley, the chairman of the W2M Network, is here as well. Hi, Jason.
I am denouncing my name as Ginger Damas. I will now go by my street hood name of Catfish.
That voice you just heard, even though he's basically meant to be audioed and not listened to. Okay, let's try that again. You actually didn't hear him, but you will now. The once again executive producer of the Kickoff, Sean Garmer.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry that I messed up your show already.
Yeah, mute your damn microphone, Garber. Jesus. What kind of Mickey Mouse organization are we working for around here?
I wish we was working for Mickey Mouse. Good Lord, we'd be rich.
God.
Yeah, we're making a lot more money.
Are you kidding? If we were working for Mickey Mouse, but then, it would give me an excuse to Donald Duck all the time, but,
Erik, I'm pretty sure your proclivities would prevent you from working for Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. Although I have heard some interesting things about Celebration, the community right nearby there.
Family show!
I mean, Erik does have that video with the gerbil.
There's your first of the year, Harry. We should keep a tally.
So we really shouldn't, because I'm going to lose track around week 2. That other voice you just heard is the co-host turned producer turned back into co-host, Brandon Biskobing.
I'm just the utility man, aren't I?
Oh,
wait, wrong sport.
No, you're basically like our nickel. That's what you are.
You still need to those. It's good to have that.
Congratulations. And this, to start off the season officially, is Studs and Duds. Brandon, why don't you lead us off?
Okay. So my stud for the week is Chuba Hubbard, running back from Oklahoma State. What?
Gesundheit.
I was wondering why you were making that joke in the chat earlier. But, so he went for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win over a pretty decent Oregon State team. So, good on him.
Debatable. This is the same Oregon State team that got bitch slapped at the start of the year by Ohio State last year.
Okay, it's still a Power 5 team, so.
That's also debatable given the fact that they've been a consistent performer in ESPN.com's bottom 10 over the last 2 seasons. Regardless, fair enough. And again, Gesundheit, I hope you feel better. Jason Stud.
That would be me. But my stud this week is Hakuna Matata, quarterback of Alabama.
It's our problem-free. Okay, I got to stop before we get sued by that Mickey Mouse organization. Expand.
I mean, he had, what was his stat line? He had over 300 yards, only sacked once. I think he had like 27 yards, 3 touchdowns, sacked once. Let me double check my figures. I closed out the window. You know, I got all this bait on my hands. Trying to scroll into this phone's a little tough.
This is off to a roaring start, isn't it?
Just when I had a perfect Mickey Mouse joke in my head.
300, putting up 336 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only being sacked once on 26 of 31, 5 incompletions. He's making a strong case of being the top quarterback and Heisman frontrunner. But I think there's another quarterback that may be talked about here soon that will give him a run for the money.
And in the business, we call that a segue to my stud for the week, Oklahoma's Jalen Hurts. How pissed are you right now, Erik?
Considering as how I kept telling people, oh no, go ahead and get the over in that game. And the fact that I got to sit and enjoy with that backdoor cover while they were pissed off, not as pissed as I was, say, week 0.
And we all know Erik loves the back door.
You son of a bitch. Anyway,
Harry, I've got a whole off season worth of getting you to lose your composure.
Well, let's get back to it here. Jalen Hurts becomes the first Oklahoma quarterback to ever have 3 rushing and 3 passing touchdowns in the same game, as Boomer Sooner, ranked number 4 in the country, rolls over Houston on Sunday Night Football. Yes, you heard that correctly. Week 1 college is Week 1 Sunday Night Football on ABC, however. God, Mickey Mouse organizations. As Oklahoma wins 49-31 and solidifies themselves as escaping what could have been their biggest out-of-conference trip up here. Erik, wrap it up for studs with us, will you?
Well, speaking of biggest out-of-conference trip-ups, I mean, Iowa State, you expected them being ranked in the preseason for the first time in Lord knows how long. They would go scheduling a typical FCS cupcake like these schools do and figure, oh, we have an easy win. My stud for the week is someone who prevented that, Will McElvain, quarterback for Northern Iowa, which reasserted themselves as an FCS powerhouse. Yes, the numbers are somewhat mediocre-ish, 25 of 42, 228, and a touchdown. However, that brilliant touchdown pass while rolling right and helping force overtime and eventually pushing the Cyclones to 3 overtimes, yeah, you're my stud for the week.
I guess the appropriate thing to say here would be segue. We move over to duds. Jason?
Well, on the flip side of that coin, my dud is the Iowa State team, who was actually being touted as a dark horse for the Big 12 that may upset the apple cart. But they kind of didn't do that. They didn't show their prowess. They went to a triple overtime. Yeah, they did win, but still, it's a triple overtime win. Granted, they faced off against an FCS powerhouse, but they're still a D1 team in a Power 5 conference. You got to stop that noise. They're going to drop faster than Erik's pants on a Saturday night. So that's why they're my duds.
Or Friday, depending on when I get paid.
To be fair to Iowa State, yes, they almost got tripped up by an FCS team. However, they weren't tripped up by an FCS team, which we have seen happen many times. As a matter of fact, I believe we are on the decade season anniversary of Appalachian State, Michigan, 10 years ago this year.
I thought
In the Big House.
I want to say it was 2009.
Well,
Of course, Erik is going to know this, and he's going to correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you are correct.
I believe it was September
Nope.
5th, 2009.
September 1st, 2007. I knew it was 12 years. Because that's when Armani Edwards was still a quarterback.
You know you
yep.
you know you can't outsmart the Wikipedia over there.
Oh, he's basically our pro football reference on this show. I have that aspect for wrestling. He has that aspect for football.
He also has that aspect in other aspects. He's always my go-to guy.
Erik, I think we're going to add a special segment at the end of the show where you give us a single starlet pick of the week, and then you just don't say anything else. Just give us a name for us to look up.
Oh God.
I got a couple personal ones in my mind.
Yeah, family show my ass. Anywho, go on. Brandon?
Keeping track this season, that's 1.5. So beware of putting push.
Brandon dud.
My dud for the week is South Carolina, who gave up a 20-9 lead in the fourth quarter against North Carolina. They looked strong to start off the game and then blew it.
What can I say? Cocky gonna cocky.
Yep.
This is a South Carolina team that has a tradition of blowing games that they have won. If I'm not mistaken, the same thing happened to with them against Florida last year, because I know the Gators were in trouble against South Carolina last year, and then we managed to rally against them, and Mullen helped us pick up the victory there. Felipe Franks ended up finally regaining his form. Erik, dud.
Well, another team that didn't get tripped up, but a team that was supposed to roll the boat from the Big Ten West, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Yes, I understand Iowa State when you're facing an FCS powerhouse. I get that. But at the same time, South Dakota State, of the 5 best schools in that territory, you're not even playing one of them, and you almost lose, and you have to come back in the fourth quarter to win? No. God, the division of life. Ay.
Okay, I'm going to say the same thing to both you and Jason here. It is Jimmy V philosophy here. It is survive and advance. Both of them survived and advanced. And that's what matters, especially playing in the respective conferences that they play in, where surviving and advancing could mean big things later on in the year for them.
I thought you was going to get cancer and die.
Oh God.
I'm about to say, where's the Phi Slamma Jammer coming in? It's not like you're facing Clyde Drexler out there.
The views and opinions of Jason Teasley do not necessarily reflect those of the W2M network. Moving on.
But guess what? We have an announcement involving the views and opinions of Jason Teasley later on the show.
Dun, dun, dun!
Dramatic reverb.
They both stepped on the line. All right. My dud for the week is the Miami Dolphins. And I could be saying this as a Buffalo Bills fan just to kick extra dirt on the grave, and let's be honest, part of me is doing that a little bit. But there is something specifically here. Okay, so you guys know, I'm referring specifically to the merchandising department of the Miami Dolphins team. Okay, so you guys know that most NFL teams put out calendars for their teams for their fans to buy, so that way they can have like posters of their favorite players and a way to like support the team while keeping track of what it is they have to do within a given time frame, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is an 18-month calendar for the Miami Dolphins. Going from September of 2018, because it came out right before Christmas of last year, I believe, all the way to December of this year. Of the 18 players photographed for individual pullouts in that calendar, 7 of them are no longer with the team.
Oh, dear Lord.
That is almost 40% in your team's official calendar who don't play for your team anymore.
I mean, to be fair,
Freaking Vo. Go ahead, Brandon. Rain on my parade.
Did this calendar come out now or like last year?
I want to say that this is the 2020 calendar, so the one that comes out like this year.
Oh, okay. See, I was thinking you were talking about last year's, which would still be funny, but you can't really control that. But yeah, if that's the case for this year's, that's bad.
Well, it's not like when they had like the baseball team that put in the in memoriam for two guys that hadn't died yet. So there's worse, just not much worse.
Didn't that happen at like one of the WWE shows as well? Like they put up an in memoriam graphic and then they found out the guy was still alive? I feel like that happened like within the last couple of years. I'm going to have to look that up once we get off the air, and I'll let everybody know how that turns out next week. Hey, look at that. We got through studs and duds relatively unscathed. Go us! So, that happened. Oh, shit. Jason?
Well, why so that happened comes from a nice little tiny school called Jackson State, where the mascot got a little bit too protective of his player. Following a 33-yard touchdown, there was a little skirm, you could say, for the ball. Well, the mascot of Jackson State didn't take too kindly, intervened, threw the defensive player off, thus drew a flag, and continued to celebrate as he ran back over to the sidelines to join the fans and cheerleaders. So, just going to say, it's not as bad as two mascots fighting in the end zone, but hey, it's got college football off to a great start.
I mean, I give kudos to the guy because he was just doing what you do. You break up a fight. Not to mention the cheerleaders and like, flag was on me.
I mean, really, how would you feel if you was playing a football game and you looked up and seen an oversized tiger in a number 7 jersey standing over top of you in the end zone? My reaction would be, damn, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
My reaction would be, man, I really hate to be an Oregon Duck right now.
Let me just say,
suck it, Oregon. Continue, Brandon.
Seeing this up close and personal, the scariest mascot in all of college athletics is the Providence Friar.
I don't know.
Seen him. If you haven't seen what he looks like, please go look it up and tell me I'm wrong.
Too easy to make a Catholic joke and get us thrown off the network. Not gonna.
Well, I mean, you know.
Shut up, Jim.
we could say he was the same. You know, he might have been an alumni with Jerry Sandusky. Who knows?
Hey, Harry, it's okay. Because we all know sometimes mascots like the Providence Friar just touch all of us in special places. It's all good.
Hey, Erik, I got a question for you.
Yes.
And I'm going to hell for this. What's the worst? What's the only thing worse than ants in your pants?
Is that Jesus? It looks like Mother Teresa.
Okay, I'll ask again, Erik. What's the only thing worse than ants in your pants?
What is the only thing worse?
Uncles. Oh!
Oh!
All right, moving on.
No,
we better move on because we are going to get thrown off.
Yeah.
No, hold on. We got a little segue. We got like the 12. The creepiest mascot ever is that fucking baby they rolled out in New Orleans.
I don't know that.
That's in heaven.
Can I point out that I'd like to throw an honorary vote out for that bear that became the Chicago Cubs mascot? What the fuck fuck was that?
No. The Philadelphia Flyers mascot.
Oh God, yeah, that thing's bad.
I'm gonna say the Flyers.
Okay, yeah, I think we have an official winner here. All right, let's move on. Erik, so that happened.
Now, while I was going to go ahead and rant on a certain conference for the totality of their Week 1 performances, I'm going to set that aside because we'll be, no pun intended, touching on that throughout the show.
Oh,
Look, you got to feel the Holy Spirit somehow.
oh.
Oh, something holy is getting filled, all right.
The views and opinions of Erik, well, you know the rest by now. Continue, Erik.
But I am going to say that with the near trip-ups, everything else, we actually witnessed a little bit of history this weekend. Take it for what it is. The Associated Press started putting out their poll of the top 25 teams in what was then, even before it was known as the University Division, back in 1936. So you're dealing with a good little bit of history. In that time, we have seen the best performing weekend of those top 25 teams. 24 wins, 1 loss. That 1 loss, as we talked about, well, Oregon, thanks to another one of those top 25 teams, Auburn. So it made for some very interesting betting, although Stanford, I hate you. So that happened. Damn Cardinal.
I think, honestly, the reason probably why it hasn't happened in the past is because more often than at the beginning of the season like this, you have more than one ranked versus ranked game.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll get back to that as hope of all hope. The schedules start fixing themselves as we delve deeper into the era of the college football playoff, but who knows?
I mean, we've seen kind of an example of that recently here. We had the Week 0 matchup this year, which had University of Florida renewing its rivalry with Miami of Florida. We see Texas and LSU coming up on the schedule for this week as well. We see Clemson and Texas A&M coming up on the schedule for this week here. So there are definitely more games that have that could be ranked versus ranked or ranked versus ranked feel. I mean, we talked about this in our pregame show, like what we were discussing before we came on the air. LSU and Texas is a top 10 battle. Number 6 LSU versus number 9 Texas. All right, so, Erik, in regards to your Stanford bet, I suggest you make like Sonny Bono and Fear the Tree.
Oh.
Yep, I'm going to hell for that one.
I was about to, well, I mean, I think we all just put ourselves on the expression for the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
At this point, if we could have copywritten music on this show, AC/DC's Highway to Hell would be playing in the background.
Yep.
Brandon, so that happened.
You know what happened this week over the last 2 days? Huge contracts. That's what happened. Jared Goff signs a 4-year, $134 million extension. Ezekiel Elliott, after sitting out for the entirety of training camp and probably pissing off a lot of fantasy owners who drafted ahead of today, signs his 6-year, $90 million extension. But Melvin Gordon still holding out, and apparently there was a trade offer that the Chargers refused. So who the hell knows what's going to happen there with Gordon?
Okay, a couple of things to say to that. First of all, Erik, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Goff 161?
Nope. Goff was 134, but the guaranteed money was the big kicker, 110 if I remember correctly.
Okay, so Brandon did have that number correct. I thought I saw 161 on a different site, so maybe I got bad information from that.
Yeah, I looked on ESPN for this.
Yeah, plus it's probably taking into account different things because it's a 4-year extension on top of the last 2 years of his rookie deal, so I don't know 100% if that's a factor or not.
Yeah.
As I understand it, for Ezekiel Elliott, his is they have an out after 4 seasons as well, after 4 seasons and like $40-something million.
Asterisk. It's not so much an out per se, but it's $50 million guaranteed, and then the last one's going to be about $15 million or so a year. But an interesting extra clause. We all know that we can be assured of 3 things in life: death, taxes, and Ezekiel Elliott getting himself in the news during the offseason. The Cowboys put in a caveat. Before Jerry Jones made $62 million on one of his oil company investments to wipe away that whole deal in his wallet, he put in a little bit of a caveat. One slip-up, one off-field incident, and $30 million of his $50 million guaranteed will be null and void. So, pressure's really on Zeke. Do what he does on the field, and don't do a damn thing off of it.
I'm going to take the under on that and say that he's going to have to give some of that money back because this is Ezekiel Elliott we're talking about.
True.
In addition, the other
contract's backloaded, so...
In addition, the other thing from Brandon's statement that I wanted to touch on, if your fantasy football league hasn't drafted yet, speaking of Disney, you're in a Mickey Mouse fantasy football league.
Ha-ha, clocks are ticking.
No.
Ha-ha.
Oh, no. But that's what I'm saying. Almost everyone is pissed that it took him this long because I'm sure there were people who were in my position in some drafts where Elliot was on the board in round 1 and you said, I'm going to pass because you don't want to get screwed over.
I took him number 4 in my $250 league.
Well, you're a braver man than I because after what happened to me last year, I wasn't going anywhere near anyone who even had an inkling of potentially holding out.
Yeah, and I got Melvin Gordon in the 7th at the end of the 7th round.
I'm just going to say real quick here, Brandon's 2 most favorite words in the English language: Le'Veon Bell.
There needs to be a certain word added in front of those 2 words.
Well, motherfucker. Trust me, sometimes these things work out. I mean, I'm in one dynasty league where Ezekiel Elliott, he's either been traded or put on the trading block 7 times already. The market corrects itself.
Fair enough.
My so that happened is actually a so that's going to happen. We're doing this show as we usually do on Wednesday night. Tomorrow night, Thursday, for those of you who can't calendar, is the official start of the NFL's 100th season. And we open up with 2 of the original franchises in the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. See, I'm okay with this this Thursday night football matchup here, but I see a lot of people complaining about it. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this here. And we'll kind of segue this into our question segment as well. Erik, I'll ask you first.
I'm completely fine with it.
Can I ask the question?
Oh, okay.
Jesus, man. All right, let's try this here. The question is, are you okay with the Super Bowl winner not starting the season in favor of honoring the NFL's history?
I'm completely fine with it. And this leads to, well, my usual bit of trivia, like I said before. Everybody's talking about, Packers, Bears, Centennial, blah, 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 blah. Do we not remember that the NFL did the exact same thing for the Hall of Fame game and having 2 of the original AFL franchises in honoring the anniversary of that league instead of having a random AFC, NFC team? The NFL knows what they're doing 90% of the time, and this is one of them. Now, granted, if you have Khalil Mack in your IDP fantasy, yeah, I would start him. Just saying.
Of course.
Brandon, same question. Are you okay with them foregoing the traditional Super Bowl winner starts the season in favor of honoring the tradition of the NFL?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with it. And here's the thing about it. Yes, normally they do the whole ceremony with the banner and everything on Thursday night. But especially this year with it being the Centennial, you need to have especially 2 of the, top early teams in the NFL on the opening night. And you're still getting that. I'm sure you're still going to get the ceremony because the Patriots are playing on Sunday night. So it's not like they're just shoving the Super Bowl champions into a regular 1 o'clock game or anything like that. They just moved it to the Sunday night slot instead of the opener Thursday night slot.
Jason, same question.
Do I really want? Well, let me go ahead and speak on this. I'm going to take a knee in protest of police brutality, and hopefully my job is secure in doing so.
It's not.
I didn't think so.
We will call in Capper the fuck out of you on this show.
Well, if you want Egyptian Squidward to fill my place, that's just fine. But honestly, I'm totally fine with it. I mean, you're going back and showing traditional teams playing. And if you guys remember, I'm thinking it was like 5-6 years ago. Erik, you might be able to correct me on this. The NFL season actually didn't kick off on a Thursday night. It was actually a Wednesday night, and it was Giants Cowboys. So, I mean, traditions can be changed, and it doesn't give a fuck. It's football. It's back. Get the fuck over it. Quit being pussies and enjoy it.
Yep, we got football back. That's all that really matters. Oh, one thing I will say, I don't know, I didn't see anything about it, but one thing I will say I'm hoping they do, considering the reasoning for why they're doing it this way, are they going to wear any special jerseys?
I would think that they would wear some kind of throwback jerseys, but I haven't heard anything specifically.
Okay. I would hope they would have.
The Patriots are letting Tom Brady wear a red jersey on Sunday night.
As if he doesn't wear one already.
Yeah, really.
I mean, technically speaking, the referees throw flags anytime you breathe in the general vicinity of Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless. All right, let's move on here. So as the NFL celebrates its 100th anniversary, college football celebrates its 150th. And since Erik discussed the top 25, let's go ahead and tie that into our conversation here. Erik.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to pick one franchise that represents what college football is all about, if you had to describe college football in one university, what university would you choose?
Whoa,
Bringing the heat. I'm bringing the heat early this year.
Jesus, I can't expect a fastball this early, but as strange as it is, and hear me out, they weren't around for the very, very beginning. They didn't come in until a couple decades later. But when you think just even football in general, you have a couple of states in mind. And when I think college football, I think it's perfectly encapsulated in really this state. History, pageantry, big moments, centered of attention with controversy, quirky headlines, etc. The University of Texas. Yes, I know as a whole state, you could pretty much get an entire conference, and let's face it, the Big 12 is pretty damn close to all of your schools just in that state. But if you really look at the bell cow, no pun intended, it's the Longhorns. I mean, if you think about it, go to Austin on a Saturday this time of year. You're going to see a lot of burnt orange. You go back even to the highlights of football, Centennial back in 1969. One of the biggest moments, Texas beating Arkansas and President Richard Nixon handing them the national championship trophy. While you have all the history of the Ivy League and including all the rules and the big names with Notre Dame and everybody, it's bigger and better in Texas.
That's what they say about the horse.
I'm actually going to answer this question myself last. However, we'll continue in the tradition that we've gone here. Jason, you're up. What school in what school?
I want to say Rutgers.
That's a fair assessment, actually. Yeah. Explain.
Because I mean, when you don't think about it, everybody talks about what college football is now, but you don't really think about the start of college football. I mean, Rutgers is the oldest college football team ever. It played the first. No, well, we don't count Princeton. We don't count Princeton.
They're an FCS school. They still count, but continue.
Right. Didn't Princeton forego a college football season? Early on?
No, that was not Princeton. Princeton and Rutgers played that 25-man-side game that much resembled soccer and that famous 6-4 victory. The Ivy League schools who initially abstained, especially to the point where students were arrested early in the 1870s where they were caught playing, was Harvard. Yale finally came in later that decade. So yes, Princeton count.
The reason why I ask that is because Michigan is listed as the second oldest college football school. That's why I said that Princeton forgoed football there for a brief bit, which moved Michigan up, which played 10 years post the Rutgers-Princeton game. But anyway, let's go back. Without that Rutgers-Princeton game, we wouldn't have college football as it is today. We talk about tradition, we talk about everything, but I mean, sometimes you got to look back at the roots. My 1B school, and I know this is going to give Harry a chubby, but my 1B school, when I think absolute college football and the atmosphere and everything, is Penn State. A whiteout game is probably the highest rated sporting event that I want to attend and get knocked off my bucket list, just because the atmosphere, the crowd enthusiasm. I mean, even when Penn State has down years, just a whiteout game is still the top game of the season to be at, and just for the college atmosphere.
Brandon,
y'all didn't think I would come with some intelligence this year, and I'm knocking y'all the fuck out.
Okay, Jason, before you go on, why is the sesquicentennial...
I ain't ready to discuss shit with you, Erik. I ain't on that level yet. All right, Mr. Elliot, Trebek. Goddamn sports encyclopedia. Hell,
let's move on.
Had to get up.
Let's move on, Brandon. What program encapsulates college football to you?
If we're talking about overall history and looking at college football as a whole, you can't say anything other than Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame is the quintessential college football program. Throughout the years, throughout the decades, they've always been the school that everyone associates with football. Hell, I mean, they in essence created football, the football we know today.
One of three schools in the Holy Trinity. I'll say that.
Do you know the reason? Erik will probably know the reason why I say they are the reason why football just in general exists in the form that it does today.
I'm sure one of you is going to tell us to go ahead and do so. We got to keep this moving.
They were the ones that popularized and really put into the forefront and really made it become, relevant and made it possible, the forward pass.
Erik, you wanted to chime in there. Go ahead.
Well, it was like I said, one of the schools, when you talk about the football lexicon of the game we know today, are one of the Holy Trinity. Like Princeton brought the original rules. was then reformed. Notre Dame brought the forward pass, and another school with over a century of history, Gallaudet. They were the team that gave us the huddle.
Brandon took my answer. I'm going to be entirely honest with you, and this might be surprising coming from somebody such as myself here, who is a staunch disapprover of most things Notre Dame. But I think that when you talk to the modern college football fan, especially nowadays, and even the younger generation, when you think of tradition, when you think of that aspect, when you think of the integrity and the severity of relevance that any program puts towards a specific sport, it's really hard to argue that any school takes any sport more seriously than Notre Dame takes football. I will give an honorable mention to Hart, to a team that will make Jason happy, and that would be Marshall, coming back from the disaster that they suffered.
I just don't think they're big enough. Just looking at it on from a casual perspective, they're not big enough that people really think of them and think college football.
They made a movie about them, man. Matthew McConaughey.
I know this.
And where's Matthew McConaughey, an alumnus of Texas?
He's even teaching a college course at Texas, by the way. But anyway, let's go back to this. I'm not a huge Marshall fan. That anybody that knows me knows. I live in the city that Marshall resides in.
Huntington, West Virginia, for those wondering.
I live, in all honesty, I've never been, but it's soon to happen. 5 minutes from the crash site. It is the single most impactful sports tragedy in the United States. My wife had, I didn't know this till here probably a year ago. My wife's mother actually had a cousin that played for Marshall and that was on that plane. And that the girl in the diner that is pregnant, her and her boyfriend represents my mother-in-law's cousin and his fiance at the time. So, I get that. But, on the flip side of that, you don't think tradition, but you think of heart, and, you can't really overcome something like that. It is this thing. It's something to witness in Huntington during the first home game, the homecoming, the turning on and off of the fountain. It is insane. I've been to the Marshall Memorial more times than I've been probably to my own mother-in-law's house. And to see former players come at opening weekend to show their respects to that monument is something to witness. And just to see it get decorated for each home game is something. So, yeah, I can see that from one aspect. I see both of your points. So, and I commend, Harry for even mentioning Marshall in that aspect.
All right, one more quick question to ask, and then we'll take the show back to a lighter note here. Technically, this question right here will take the show back to a lighter note, but I figured with the bicentennial and a half.
Sesquicentennial.
Mm-hmm.
Get Zunheit to you too, Erik. Fucking show off. Anyway.
I knew it too. I just Erik beat me to the punch.
Hey, Brandon.
Yes.
Muted. Shut up. Anyway, I wish I could. No, seriously though. All right. So to a more lighthearted discussion for the final question for the week here, and this will go under our former tradition for this segment, the buy or sell format. Erik.
Mm-hmm.
buy or sell. After last year's NFC Championship game, pass interference had to become a reviewable call.
Buy it. I mean, I was campaigning for it even before last year's championship game. For all the people who say, oh, it'll slow it down, oh, or blah, blah, blah. They had all preseason. Coaches even prepared during the preseason to see how it would work, so they have the timing right. Plus, look at our friendly neighbors to the north in the CFL. They've had pass interference review for years. Sometimes you barely notice it. I think it's the right idea, and hopefully it goes beyond just this trial run.
Jason.
I'm going to buy it simply because you got to hold officials accountable for blatantly missed calls. Do I think it slows the game down a little bit? Yes, but I mean, I would rather them get the call right and have a more level playing field and held accountable than have blown calls like we seen last year.
Brandon.
I'm going to buy it as well, but with one little caveat. The one thing I'm worried about, and obviously we haven't seen it in the preseason because, the games don't matter, so they're not doing these types of plays. I don't want to see a situation where let me change what I'm about to say. I hope that they have some guidelines in place for things such as Hail Marys. Because I do not want to see a situation where the defenders are so afraid of touching that air ball, like touching a player when there's that air ball, that we get like an exorbitant amount of successful Hail Marys. So as long as they have it to where the rules will be the same, and just because there's a little bit of contact on a long pass or something like that, as long as it's to where in order for it to be overturned, it has to be blatant, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, they put in for Hail Marys those particular provisions as they were setting everything up. So that's covered.
Okay.
I think after what happened in the Saints and Rams NFC Championship game in overtime last year, you had to make pass interference reviewable. The problem that I have with it is that it's reviewable on both sides, and I don't know if that's going to necessarily help or hurt the integrity of the decision, because it's now reviewable for not calling as well as calling it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could become a situation where calls that are made where teams are expecting a certain kind of ability to run forward, and then you could have a coach throwing a flag just in order to get his team a chance to recover from the big play that just happened against them.
That's actually a good point. That could potentially be a way for teams to basically, in essence, slow down an offense.
Yes, stall momentum. Somebody like the breakaway offense is like we see as much as I hate to give Robert Taylor credit in Kansas City right now. Mm-hmm. The offense in New Orleans, the offense in Los Angeles, Rams, not Chargers. Although kind of the Chargers too. Not as much, but kind of. Less so without Gordon. Regardless. All right, so we're going to introduce a new segment here. We actually talked about doing this last year for this year, and we've decided that we are going to do so. And we are entitling this segment, I'm a Survivor. This would be where we would play Destiny's Child in the background, but obviously licensing fees, it happens. We can't afford that. We're poor. Deal with it. So the rules for this segment is we make one prediction a week, straight up, not against the spread. We can pick whatever team we want to and whatever game we want to. And as the season progresses, we will be picking more games in this segment, which is your guys' heads up in advance that as the season comes up and there's less and less teams that we're able to pick, we're going to ramp it up in order to be able to crown a champion if it comes to that. Fair enough?
So even if we all blow it in like week 2 or week 3, it's still continuing?
Yes. We'll We'll do an overall I'm a Survivor champion as well as an original champion. Don't worry. I'll make it work. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our Survivor League predictions for this particular week 1 of the National Football League season. I was asked before we started the show if we were going to do college. Brandon brought up that question to me. And I will give you all the same answer that I gave Brandon. The answer to that question is no. And the reason being is that there are too many dominant college football teams in order to make a survivor pool work for college football. Perhaps we could do a conference survivor for college football down the road where we specifically pick one conference and play it out. But in terms of an overall college football prediction, there's too many dominant teams that play, let's be honest, too weak of schedules for there to be enough games that could trip people up over the course of a calendar season in college football.
Fair enough.
Erik.
You know,
Week one survivor. Who you got?
You know, I know I've talked about this team. I know in the past I gave this team what should have been a fantastic advertising opportunity that they completely flubbed and they missed. I'm not incredibly bitter about that. However, sometimes when your gut tells you there's a little bit too much hype on something, you gotta listen to it. My week 1, I'm a survivor. The Tennessee Titans beating the Cleveland Browns. I'm not quite there yet. Not yet.
Okay. That's a bold pick for week 1.
Well, I mean, I'm not picking them the rest of the season, so I'm like, get them out of the way now. Risk it to get the biscuit while I have a chance.
Fair
and
enough.
There's going to be other fandoms who will hate me when we go later in the show.
That is a whole lot ballsier than I was expecting for week 1. Somebody.
Yeah, really.
Jason, week 1, you're a survivor.
Week 1, that the team that will not get voted off the island will be the Philadelphia Eagles going over the Washington Redskins.
You son of a bitch. My week
you will
1.
See, you will see a heavy trend. You will see a heavy trend on my survivor picks because I'll go ahead and let you in on a little secret. For every week I survive, the following week, whoever plays Washington will probably be my survivor.
That would probably be the same for me, just with a different team.
Technically speaking, you could probably do that with whoever's playing Miami as well and be right most of the season too.
Oh God! Yeah.
I kind of figured that's where one of you guys were going.
Actually, my week 1 I'm a survivor pick, since Jason already took it, is the Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Redskins. Or excuse me, over the Washington Redacteds. Sorry, I can't say that. Brandon.
My survivor for the week, I'm surprised no one else thought of this one because I feel like this is a much safer pick than the Eagles over the Redskins. I'm taking the Seahawks over the Bungles.
I was thinking about it, but everybody that calls my pick ballsy, remember, in their last 14 week 1 games, what is the Browns' record? 0-13-1.
Oh, I don't deny that the Browns are still probably gonna Browns this year, but I think they'll be heavily improved over the last few years.
This is exactly why I'm picking the Titans to get them out of the way.
Fair enough.
I will say this much as far as the Seahawks and Cincinnati thing goes. Brandon, I urge you to beware of the Bengal here. Because Cincinnati has a long-standing tradition of losing games they should win and winning games they should lose. I take you back to 2 seasons ago, sir, and you know exactly what I'm referring to.
I know exactly what you're referring to because that was one of the happiest days for you.
Oh, you mean the week before a certain 10-3 playoff loss?
I knew that was coming.
Hey, Erik, 24-20, bitch, shut up.
God, y'all are so hostile.
Damn.
There's my Florida Miami reference for the week. But going back to that real quick, so yeah, the Andy Dalton to Tyler Boyd pass that helped them beat Baltimore in Week 17 to send Buffalo to the postseason 2 years ago. It's been said that nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals are probably a close second.
Fair enough.
Hey, Erik.
Yeah-ish.
I mean this from both a show perspective and on a personal perspective. Get it together.
Well, I mean, I've got things mostly together, although next week, now that the storm's over, I've got a tough decision to make, as I've got 3 options thanks to
Family show!
That's 2.5, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, most weeks you're going to want to take the over. Continue.
Now, for this one, I didn't want to bash the entire conference, even though I could have, but there's one particular team in together. Tennessee. I get that, times aren't really happy and you haven't had too many reasons to sing Rocky Top over the past, decade or so, but at the same time, do you really think that you can look at yourselves in the mirror without wearing orange and white checkered paper bags over your heads after the debacle that was a loss to, if I remember correctly, a 2-win team who was predicted to finish dead last in their division, in their conference, in Georgia State? Remember, this is a team, yes, they had a great start to their history playing where the Falcons played at the old Georgia Dome, and now they play where the Braves used to play, but they're still the Georgia State Panthers. Tennessee, I don't expect much, but I did expect something better of you. Just for the sake of everybody in the Great Smoky Mountains, get it together.
Good old Rocky Top. I get to laugh again in a few moments. Jason, get it together.
Oh, God. We're going to go to the Big Ten to get it together. And that is the lovely football team known as Purdue. They're absolutely wasting a tremendous talent at wide receiver in Rondale Moore. I mean, honestly, he's getting touted as the second best wide receiver in college football. He just has absolutely no supporting cast. I mean, it's kind of like me on this show. Oh, wait. I said that out loud, my bad. Okay, it's kind of like me and my fishing partner. I catch all the fish, they get nothing. So, and I carry us during tournaments. But I mean, the kid is an absolute stud, but he's just not surrounded by very good talent. So come on, Purdue, get it together. Don't let this kid's talent waste away under your watch.
Erik, I feel like you would know this. Moore led the Big Ten in receptions last year and yards receiving, correct?
I believe so, but I've got to double-check that one.
Okay, while he's double-checking, Brandon, get it together.
My get it together this week is the Oregon Ducks. Yes, you were playing another ranked team, but you blow a 21-6 lead to lose your opening game when, granted, none of us predicted the Pac-12 to do much of anything anyway, but a lot of people were thinking that the Ducks would win the Pac-12 and go to the Rose Bowl, potentially. You have to get it together, especially your late game play, if you want to have any chance of doing that.
Erik, do you have an answer for us?
Not yet. Phone is being slightly annoying.
Very well. All right, I'll do my get it together then. And you know how I said I was going to laugh again once a little bit later on in the show?
No, I don't remember that.
I got to laugh at Tennessee when Erik mentioned them, and it was funny. It was nice. It was fun. But you know which one Florida fans really like to laugh at?
Miami?
Florida State.
Oh, that was an epic comeback. I was happy.
31-19 Seminoles at halftime in a game that got moved from a neutral, in air quotes on an audio podcast field, to Tallahassee.
No, trust me. It's Jacksonville. It's a neutral field.
Regardless of that, being moved to Tallahassee, thus giving Florida State a home game and a 31-19 halftime lead. Enough you would think, and you would think wrong, because the Smurf Turfers themselves, Boise State, score 17 unanswered in the second half, and the final score out of Tallahassee, Florida, Boise State Broncos 36, Florida State Seminoles 31. As much as I enjoy laughing at you, Florida State, for the sake of Florida football, get it together.
Hank Bachmeier, remember that name. And to answer your question, he did lead the Big Ten in receiving yards, more did, but he was tied in a three-way tie for receiving touchdowns with 12.
I feel like one of those is going to be an Ohio State player.
It was. And believe it or not, a Minnesota player, which, oh God, Minnesota. Yeah, you think you're going to be mad at me now. Wait until later in the show.
I believe we call that going full circle here on the show since we talked about Minnesota earlier. Can you believe we're already up to our final segment of the show, guys?
Thank God. I mean, this has ran really smooth tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't dragged on with much sidebarring down the rabbit.
And
down
Okay, I'll stop.
Jason, wasn't your saying, Jason, it's always easier to fish in calmer waters? Something like that.
It is. Fishing in choppy waters creates upset people.
All right, let's get to it here. This segment is staying the same from last year, everybody. We close the show, as per usual, with, "Are you serious?" And we will start in college football, as has become the tradition on this show. Erik, since you've led off every other segment on this show, why don't you go ahead and take the honors here as well?
Gladly. You know I love myself some Jim Harbaugh. You know that I picked Michigan to do very well in the college previews as far as doing well this season. However, do you know who they happen to be playing this week?
I do, because you told us earlier in the group chat.
Yes. Well, obviously, I had to sort of preview everything. But to the listeners who were not privy to that group chat, they're playing one of the certain service academies. One who happens to run a very rarely seen nowadays type of offense. That rarely seen offense, which is difficult to plan against.
Ask Oklahoma.
Exactly. And if you're not careful, it can lead to some very strange final scores and opportunities to be tripped up.
Wait. I can add to that one too. You ready? Ask Houston.
Yeah.
Because this team hung this team hung 70 on them in a bowl game. Continue.
You're absolutely correct. And I'm going to also put in a little bit of extra for this. While I think with Shea Patterson and everybody they can overcome, be very wary of that spread, and also be a little bit wary of Michigan next week. I'm serious when I say Army, the Black Knights, while they may not be victorious, damn sure cover 22.5.
Jason, college football. You serious?
Well, yes, I want to be serious. Since my first initial pick was thrown out, we'll give that an honorable mention. But I'm going to bring it back to a little thing we done last year. And do the homer pick. God. West Virginia at Missouri, getting 14 points. I think it's going to happen, considering Missouri gave up like 21 points to a Wyoming team to open their college football season. So I'm going to be the homer. Give me the 14, WU on the road. With my honorable mention being the number 9 Texas Longhorns upsetting the number 6 LSU Tigers.
I stand by my statement that I don't think 3 spaces apart is a far enough gap for an upset, and this actually does lead to a caveat for later on in the season for everybody listening to us here. In order for a ranked versus ranked matchup to count in Are You Serious, there has to be at least a 10-space gap in the rankings in the future.
All them gamblers, for the love of God, take Texas in the points. Trust me.
See, I think LSU wins and covers.
That line was originally 6.5. Now some places it's down to 5.5. That's for a reason. All right.
Go ahead and say it, Jason.
I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to sit here and sing my nitty ditty dirt band "Fishing in the Dark" in my head while I listen for the rest of this show.
Brandon, college. You serious?
My Are You Serious for college is Northern Colorado probably not beating Washington State, but certainly covering the spread, which at the moment is 36.5 points.
I will point out that Washington State just beat a D1, a FBS school by like 51 points last week. Northern Colorado is an FCS school and not a particularly good one.
Hey, Southern Utah UNLV. Not to mention, I read some interesting stories about Mike Leach and his film preparation sessions, especially with quarterbacks. You might be onto something.
I'm going to make a bold prediction, and I'm going to make it even bolder. Not only is my prediction a cover here, my prediction is an outright victory as Nevada goes to Oregon and beats the now number 16th ranked Oregon Ducks.
Ooh. So you think the Ducks start falling even further? Damn.
Oh, I don't know. I was talking about that in another group chat, and I'm like, I said even with the spread, I'd say, hey, take Oregon to cover with that one.
I think Oregon's going to be shell-shocked from their second-half performance against Auburn, and I think Nevada's riding on the high of taking down Purdue last week.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think lightning strikes twice. Do you really think that after that emotional win, a 56-yarder at the gun by a backup kicker who just got put on scholarship, there's so much that could carry you?
We've seen it happen plenty of times before, Erik. We've seen these group of 5 schools step up and face these bigger conferences and knock them down one by one by one. And let's not forget that Nevada is not exactly a scrub group of 5 school here. This has been a consistent bowl team in Nevada. This has been a consistent Nevada team that has contended with a who's who of college football in Boise State for the Mountain West title over the course of the last couple of years.
Fair. I don't know. It's another one of those with my gut.
We'll see what ends up happening. Saturday night, 7:30, Pac-12 Network. Erik, we go back to you for the National Football League.
Okay, remember how I said that there are more fandoms who would hate me?
You
And
can hate me now, but I won't stop now. Continue.
state where I've been talking about their collegiate football team.
Oh, poor Detroit. Oh, wait. No, that maybe Detroit, the Lions.
No, Minnesota. I'm rubbing salt in the wound.
Falcons.
Wait, I thought it was 5-point minimum.
It's 4.
Is it?
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of the spreads, and I'm like, with that one, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't like that. I'm going to admit I probably never will like that. But I do like the Falcons +4. So y'all better put your skull chance away for this week.
I'm just going to point out that Minnesota's last home game to start a season was a disaster when that Buffalo went to Minnesota and whooped their ass.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 4 or 4.5, Erik?
It's 4.
I'm seeing 4 by ESPN. Other books may have it 4.5.
Okay. Jason?
I'm going to continue this week with homerism, and I'm taking the Giants +7 versus Dallas. I think the off-field distractions of Zeke, getting signed and trying to get him integrated in for the game is going to stifle and hamper that offense a little bit. And hell, nobody's giving New York a cold chance in hell anyway, so why not? Go ahead and bet your money on the Giants. I look for Evan Ingram to have like 1 billion yards and 7 touchdowns.
Maybe just a shade under 1 billion.
Just a bit.
Maybe. I don't know. He's
999.5. That's a good one.
He's playing all 4 receiver positions as well as tight end and possibly fullback. So it's possible.
Brandon?
I am going with the Houston Texans -7. Maybe not beating the Saints, but certainly getting it closer than 7 points.
Strongly disagree. I think New Orleans is going to be out to send a message in this game.
Fair enough.
If this were later in the season, I would say maybe.
Yeah, agreed.
But for week 1, mm-mm.
Oh, I got a doozy for you guys.
Oh, God.
We talked about this game a little bit earlier in the show, actually.
Uh-oh.
Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Schuster-Smith, and James Conner ruined the banner hanging by going to Foxborough and not only covering 5.5, but beating New England.
Damn.
No, okay, I am going to say this right now to the city of Pittsburgh. I love you. You're awesome. Please, if any sort of weird, supernatural or celestial events happen and there's like a curse placed upon your city, do not blame Harry whatsoever. He does not know of the infernal trinity that resides in Foxborough. Please don't get mad at him. Don't send him. Just no. I got to look out for my boy on this one.
I ain't scared of Ish.
You say that now, but then when you got a horseman of the apocalypse knocking on your damn door, then what?
Obviously, I offer him a Snickers because he must be hungry. Do we not remember anything from television ads?
Okay, fair point. All right, you got me on that one.
All right, one more quick piece of business to handle, and then we can get into our plugs and stuff for the show here. So as you guys know, Sean Garmer filled in for me last week in order to do the AFC and NFC preview editions of the Kickoff, as well as the playoff predictions for these guys here. Therefore, I am a little out of the loop, so I'm going to go ahead and run down my predictions real quick for everybody. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Ready.
Feel free to give me shit if you disagree. I'm encouraging it. Let me at least finish the prediction.
Considering it was a certain arrangement that I'm finalizing with Jason, there's no possible way.
Yeah, I don't think you can get much worse than Jason.
Just let me finish the picks
Both
first.
of you can
before
suck
you
a
get-
dick.
All right, in the AFC, I have New England winning the East. Bastards. I have Pittsburgh winning the North. I have Houston winning the South. And I have Kansas City winning the West. My wild cards are the Chargers and Cleveland.
Okay.
Anyone?
The only thing I didn't have, I think, was Cleveland, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think Cleveland Browns are gonna Browns.
Yeah. Of anything.
I think y'all's tired of the draft, pussy.
Well, if anything, Harry, you're 5 out of 6 with me. Just instead of Cleveland, swap in the Jets.
I swapped in the Ravens, I believe.
See, I don't think the Jets are going to finish above 500 this year.
Neither do I.
I think just sneaky with Adam Gase and with Sam Darnold. I think they're just sneaky enough.
I'm saying 8-8 is their ceiling.
I could see that as well.
In the NFC, I have Philadelphia winning the North. Philadelphia winning the East, excuse me. Green Bay winning the North. New Orleans winning the South. And the Rams winning the West. My wild card teams are Chicago and Atlanta.
I was debating between New Orleans and Atlanta in the South. I begrudgingly kind of picked New Orleans, even though I expect Drew Brees to kind of fade down the stretch. My wild cards were completely different, though. I had the Niners and the Cowboys.
I have the Cowboys winning the East. I do not trust Carson Wentz's back, and I do not trust his backup either.
I see what you did there. Well done.
So, and I had Seattle as my second wild card team, as well as Atlanta.
I had the best picks ever. Go back and listen to the show if you want to hear them. Because I honestly...
His were all over the place in the NFC.
I've got a mega parlay set up with him. We're just finalizing the terms.
I won't go through the entirety of my playoff predictions because I'm still not guaranteed on seeding or anything like that. But I will say one of the things that I do think will happen is I do think we have a return to the Super Bowl this year. I think New England goes back out of the AFC. I don't want them to, but I think it happens.
Same.
Erik and I both basically said that Bill Belichick will figure out some demonic way of getting them past the Chiefs.
The only thing for me is I don't think it would be Kansas City that they beat in the AFC East final or in the AFC Championship game. I think as long as they can find a reasonable stopgap for losing Gordon, who I don't think is as important to that offense as everybody makes him out to be, I think the Chargers are still a threat in the AFC.
Erik and I both had Kansas City. I think Jason had San Diego, or not San Diego, LA.
At least one of us is going to do that every single week. Don't feel bad, Brandon.
Oh, I know. I still consider them San Diego.
My NFC Championship game is a rematch from last year, but this time the team that should have won last year does win. The Saints beat the Rams.
I think Erik and I both had the Rams being the Saints. Is that correct, Erik?
Yeah, we had a rematch, and basically, it's just like I had the Rams, although I think it's not going to be as close. But yeah, the Rams. I know I had the Rams winning. I don't know if I had them. No, I take that back. I didn't have the Rams beating the Saints. I had the Rams beating the Cowboys in the NFC Championship.
You're right. I had the Rams beating the Saints, I believe.
And Drew Brees rides off into the sunset with a Super Bowl ring, taking down the New England Patriots.
I have the Rams beating the Patriots.
Same.
So we all agree that the winner of the Super Bowl is coming out of the NFC this year.
Yes.
Yes.
We just don't necessarily agree on who that winner is going to be.
Yes.
Yeah, we all know there's only so many pentagrams that you can draw in Miami.
Brandon, where can people find you online?
On Twitter at Bisco_GothamSN and on Facebook on all of our channels and everything.
Jason, you said you and Erik had a plug here. Go ahead and go for it, and then tell people where they can find you online.
Well, it has been brought to my attention that me and Erik kind of got a job offer. So, starting with the kickoff of the XFL season, you can find me and Erik over on the Radley Broadcasting Network, where we will be debuting a show covering the XFL with a little bit of twist. It's going to be me and Erik talking football without Harry being able to kind of family show us. And there's going to be...
Family show!
3.5.
It's going to be a gracious amount of alcohol involved. Yes.
And if I actually start...
It's going to be the debut of the Black Irish podcast, where me and Erik get drunk and we discuss the XFL. Maybe we stay on topic. Maybe we don't.
Probably they don't.
Probably not.
It's all up to you to tune in. And, of course, I'm sure we'll be lucky enough to have our two gracious co-hosts here to join us on occasion. Because sometimes me and Erik might need to be reined in.
Especially since if I get another big boy job by the time it starts, I will be back to taking some good old-fashioned Pat McAfee vitamins. # for the brand.
Well, you know I will be on to rein y'all in at some point.
Good luck with that. Surprised you didn't chime in when Jason picked the Giants to beat Dallas.
Oh, I was busy. Sorry.
Is that what we're calling it these days? All right, get it, Sean.
Hey, you gotta take the opportunity, man.
Where can people find you online, Jason?
Usually it's at TurkeyGlue822 on Twitter. You can catch me doing guest spots over on the Radley Broadcasting Network. My next appearance will be coming up this coming Tuesday when I'll be on a movie podcast to review It Chapter 2. And if you get bored and you want to talk fantasy football or bullshit, hit me up on Twitter. I'll probably not reply, but hey, it'll make me feel important.
Erik, where can people find you online?
I'm just going to say this. Depending on what you want to talk about, at Squid Sportshead on Twitter. If you want to talk...
Show!
Wait, so we're making that 4.5? Oh, wow. Gonna have to adjust the spread for next week.
You knew this one was gonna happen. I mean, come on now.
We'll call it 4. That'll be like a half point as well.
Okay, so that, and if you want to discuss other topics and little handy bits of conversation, and if you want to get into a discussion of why I would recommend someone like Tessa Fowler or otherwise, message me on @SquidSportsHead, and I will direct you accordingly. After a thorough vetting process, of course.
I need like a sound effect so that way we can officially chime in. And this has been Erik's Pick of the Week.
I'll work on that.
We're gonna have to work with getting some serious sound effects going for this show. HEB the Eagle on Twitter. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Honestly, it's very hit and miss. Harry Broadhurst over on Facebook. Send me a message, I'll respond. I'll talk wrestling, sports, whatever. I'm always looking for people to talk to. Viewer discretion advised when it comes to visiting anything related to Erik or Jason.
No,
But,
discretion is not advised, because I'm going to tell you, hey, dive right in.
Okay. User discretion advised when it comes to talking to Jason or Erik, then fine. How's that? Now let me finish. All right, anyway, that's what she said. I think I was finished too. That's unfortunate. Also, what she said. Anyway.
Yeah,
no, in all seriousness.
A lot of times I got to tell them, hey, you got to let me finish. But anyway, that's beside the point.
And I can think of no better note to close the show on. Guess what? We're back, bitches! For our executive producer, Sean Garber, who is unfortunately now overseeing this shit show, you poor bastard. Jason Teasley, Braden Biskobing, Erik Watkins. I am your host. My name is Harry Broadhurst. This has been The Kickoff here on the W2M Network, online at W2Mnet.com. And available on all of your favorite podcast listening devices. iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, CastBox. Hey, Brandon, guess what?
Spotify is here.
And Glacier's a dick! Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys
Grandma's
next week.
Pimp Gravy.
Also on lastwordonprofootball.com. Bye.
Go us! Woohoo! Thanks for listening.